Today I want to talk about the Fujifilm camera that's making me fall back in love with the idea of Sony cameras. Hey everybody, thanks so much for stopping by. If you're new here, my name is Nick, full-time traveler, street photographer, and Fuji hater here on YouTube. You know, I'm gonna level with you for a second. I was on the fence about even making this video because I've been on a kind of crusade to either make better gear videos or no gear videos at all. And by better gear videos, I mean I only really want to make them if I have something new or meaningful to add to the conversation that you haven't heard 863 times. But today, I feel like I've got something new for you. It's been the better part of a year now since I first picked up the Fujifilm X-H2s to replace my X-T5 as the main camera in my photography and videography workflow. I wanted better video ergonomics, more professional features like the CF Express card slot, a flippy screen, fewer megapixels, the whole package just stood out to me. And I got all that for the most part, for what at the time I considered to be a pretty big compromise. And that compromise was the lack of my beloved physical ISO and shutter speed dials. You see, I was convinced that it was the ergonomics that I loved about Fujifilm cameras. I was also convinced that I was going to absolutely despise shooting stills on the X-H2s for that very reason. I was under the impression that I needed those manual controls, the more analog ergonomics, to really enjoy photography or feel involved in the process. Now I'm wondering if it's the function and the ergonomics I fell in love with, or just the aesthetic. I don't know, maybe I'm just not really the target market for Fujifilm anymore. And that's fine. I don't expect them to cater to my exact needs or specific whims. And before you finish up writing that hate comment about how dare I criticize your favorite multi-billion-dollar imaging company, consider that we're all different people with different needs, and I'm simply offering a perspective here for you to chew on. I can definitely buy into the idea that how a camera looks, how it feels to shoot with, whether or not it makes you want to pick it up, has an impact on your experience with that tool, with that photography tool in the long run. If nothing else, if you like the camera and it makes you want to pick it up, you'll shoot more with it and you'll advance faster as a photographer. But after using the H2s for a little bit, I got used to the different layout. I got used to the more modern SLR style of the 2S versus the T5 that I'd used for years beforehand. I got the hang of composing with the flippy screen. I learned to live without my physical adjustment dials, and I learned to love the custom modes and the video performance and the stacked sensor and the CF Express card and just the speed and snappiness of everything about the 2S. Because look, I shoot a lot, like multiple days a week, many hours a week behind the camera. And humans are nothing if not adaptable. There's a learning curve for sure with new things, new tools, and that initial friction does suck. But usually there's a hump, and once you're on the other side of it, it's smooth sailing from there. And what I realized on the other side of the X-H2s hump is that while I missed aspects of the T5, and that is certainly my preferred ergonomic configuration for a camera, this camera addressed all of the things that irritated me about the T5, and it did the things that I liked about that camera even better. And most of all, what I love about the H2s is that it gets out of the damn way most of the time. And that's when I realized that maybe I should consider going back to Sony after all. The H2s is really close to being perfect for me. I have a couple new complaints, of course, and Fujifilm's autofocus is great. It's a lot better, but it's still not perfect. I've still had a couple of clips ruined. The form factor we've discussed, you guys fought me a little bit in the first H2s video, but I still maintain that this camera is the size of a full frame body, and if I'm not getting the full frame benefits out of it, I want the size benefits instead. Like, it's either size or full frame, come on. You know, I got into APS-C initially because of the price, but it's the form factor and it's the size advantage that I've stayed for. The ergonomics, like I mentioned, of course, I would rather have something like a T5 where I can have this very photocentric experience when I want it, but I also own the Pro 3 and now the X100VI for those types of days. And of course, the screen. I love the tilt screen for photography. I prefer the flippy screen for recording all of this type of content being in front of the camera. And until Fujifilm puts on a screen that tilts and flips out to the side, again, kind of like the Sony A7R5 screen, I'm gonna keep complaining about it. But yeah, the fact that I get along so well with this camera and I have so few issues with it makes me really seriously consider why I'm not just over on the Sony ecosystem. Without that aesthetic, ergonomic attachment to Fujifilm, really I'm free to look around at any camera manufacturer. You know, that's really Fuji's main and almost only differentiator. It's what sets them apart at the end of the day from brands like Nikon and Canon and Sony. And real quick, let's talk about the perfect camera, or the illusion of the perfect camera, for just a minute. If I'm being honest, I have really zero plans to leave Fuji entirely, but I've realized that the perfect camera is very much a myth. We all have needs and preferences and use cases that are just too unique and eclectic to ever find one body that really does literally everything you could ever want it to do exactly how you'd want it to do it. But I don't think it's about one body at all anymore. I think it's about finding the right pairing. I think it's about having a main camera and a backup camera. You know, a Sony a7 IV and a Ricoh, or the Fujifilm X-H2s and the X100VI. When you don't have to stress about finding everything all in one place, it makes it a lot easier to start thinking about which combination works the best instead. And I'm holding out for the Fujifilm X-T6. That is something that I've talked about for a long time at this point. I know it's a very anticipated camera that's probably gonna be a next year thing. And I don't know any more information than you guys have. I don't have any inside source, but I think Fujifilm is on the cusp technologically of being truly competitive with the other brands. And that means I'm honestly expecting to be pretty impressed by that camera and by, frankly, everything in the next generation that Fujifilm puts out. So here's the thing, if I can get the things that I love about the 2S, or at least the vast majority of them, in a form factor that I prefer, particularly in a smaller camera, then I'll make that my main camera, whether it's the T6 or some new thing entirely. It's not that there's anything glaring that I can't do with the equipment that I have. It's not holding me back really in any way, but I'm at a point where if I continue to be frustrated by little things about Fujifilm cameras and just the direction of the company, Sony's right there waiting for me, and they've been on the cutting edge of all imaging technology for years and years. I mean, honestly, I look at video files that I shot in S-Log back when I was shooting with the A6400, and I even find that footage easier to work with and grade sometimes compared to F-Log and F-Log 2. I look at the H2S as the only Fuji camera I've ever used that even comes close to the autofocus that Sony had in the mid-2010s. Image quality and photography is an afterthought. Every camera is overkill for stills at this point. Follow that train of thought a little bit further, people were making better stuff than any of us could ever hope to in the 70s with film cameras. None of us are being held back by our gear anymore. I'm looking solely at quality of life, video performance, size, weight, ergonomics, and just where the brand overall is heading. The H2S is proof to me that Fujifilm is capable and willing to cater to more professional level workflows. And I hope that we'll see some of its higher end features and more in the next generation of Fujifilm cameras, particularly something like the T6. But I don't work at Fujifilm and I can't control what they do. Fuji's core audience is hobbyist photographers, not pro-level videographers. You know, that crowd exists in Fujifilm, and it's entirely possible to be pleased with their lineup if you belong to that category, but it's not the main focus of the brand, and nor should it be. That's why Fuji's entry-level offerings are so powerful, and why cameras like the X100 line and the X-T30 and X-T50 and the XM5 and the X-Half all exist. You can't blame them for doing what they do best and focusing in on that stuff. But that's it. What do you think? You can finish your hate comment now if you still want to. I'll read it and probably respond. If you enjoyed this video or what I had to say, be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe stick around, watch another couple videos, share with a friend, you know, just help me out with the algorithm. It's always much appreciated. But with that, I will talk to you very soon in the next one.